We're back with our final episode of The Bachelor, and when I say we have so much to talk about, we have so much to talk about. The girls get to meet Matt's family, Matt comes to an important realization, and Emmanuel Acho guides us through some uncomfortable conversations. I'm Alexa Gabriella, and this is your Bachelor. We get into things very quickly with Michelle meeting Matt's family for the first time. Matt's mom pulls Michelle aside to talk privately, and she ends up getting pretty emotional and opens up about how she's always wanted Matt to be a part of a cohesive family.
It sounds like you had a very cohesive family life.
Yeah.
Which is a blessing because Matt, growing up, tended to choose friends that had very strong families. And I would always just... It was just a blessing.
It seems Michelle was instantly received with open arms. I mean, for Matt's mom to cry like that, you could tell she was like, wait a minute, my son might actually be in love here. They all seem to absolutely adore her. This date couldn't have gone any better, and I was so rooting for Michelle. Michelle's meeting with Matt's family is a tough act to follow. The whole time I was thinking, this is it. Rachel doesn't have a chance. In the beginning of their date, it just felt like Matt's brother was given questions by producers to ask because it felt like a straight up interview. But once Matt's mom got to chat with her, she was equally as emotional as she was with Michelle.
Rachel, my heart resonates because I hear you. And your feelings and where they come from. It means a lot to me.
Their date ends with Matt fully confident in the process.
I'm ready for an engagement and a marriage.
You guys heard him, right? He was fully ready for an engagement and a marriage. But the moment he speaks to his family about an engagement, his mom was like, pump the brakes. From her experience, love is not the end all be all.
There's nothing like being in love. It makes life wonderful. But, you know, people fall in and out of love, and love is not the end all be all.
I can't help but feel like Matt's mom was pushing a lot of her own fears on Matt because of her experience with his dad. Matt was so ready to be engaged. When she asked him about it, he was confident in saying getting engaged was the reason he was even on the show. He allowed himself to be open and vulnerable, but he values his mama, and anyone in this process would take everything their parents said seriously. So in Matt getting this feedback, you can instantly feel his energy shifts and him start to change his mind. Matt meets Chris Harrison to discuss the future of his relationships, and even Chris is confused by his sudden decision not to propose.
Love changes, love wilts, feelings change. Like, don't worry, love ends? I mean, what kind of greeting card is that?
I honestly think that if his mom never questioned his decision making, the season would have ended very differently. Matt goes on his final date with Michelle. He makes it seem like they're going to go enjoy a beautiful rooftop view, until Michelle realizes there's only one way down. They finally reach the grounds and have the chance to sit down and chat. But to me, it was just so clear that while Michelle was talking, Matt knew right then and there that she wasn't the one. I felt like he was trying to ease her into it by trying to explain his tough conversation with his family.
It was not easy, that conversation or my mom's conversation, because they've both experienced a bunch of pain, and it's definitely had me thinking about everything that I need to consider so that I can make the best decision for us, you know.
Michelle didn't seem to suspect a thing. Before the night ends, Michelle has the cutest surprise for Matt.
When I came here, why I put on hold changing the world is because I wanted a partner in crime to do that with me. And you are somebody who I see fit for that. So it wouldn't be fair to give you a jersey and not also have a teammate. So I decided to look into the future a little bit.
The moment he held up those jerseys, I just knew that was it. We were gonna have to say goodbye to Michelle. I was full on sobbing watching this. Michelle was so ridiculously in love, and it just broke my heart. I think the worst part was how blindsided Michelle was. He led her to believe in the relationship, so for him to just have ended it like that must have felt really awful. I will say that it seemed like a part of him really regretted his decision. He sits outside with Chris Harrison and explains why he broke up with her.
That's the hardest part, you know? It's like, you know, it's something that you have to do. And I've never felt this way about anybody, and it's been a long time since I've cried.
Yeah. Part of you loved her.
Yeah. But I wasn't in love with her.
I was shocked by this entire conversation because his connection with Michelle showed on screen more than anyone else, and for it to end that way just didn't make sense to me at all. Michelle literally has all of the qualities he said he was looking for, and I think that in itself scared him away. Michelle is a girl with a plan, and his relationship with Rachel seemed to be the more comfortable route. As much as this hurt Michelle, Matt was also a wreck and in tears the entire time. He was so heartbroken he sent Chris to cancel his date with Rachel. This freaked Rachel out because she had no answers, no information, and he left her to think about all the possible reasons for why he canceled. But little does Rachel know that Matt is still willing to see Neil Lane, hoping that he'll spot a ring that will speak to him. I just didn't understand this because what did he think was going to happen? There was just going to be a ring that was like, pick me, and it was just going to tell him about how to go about his future. He ends up picking one out to hold on to, but he's still clueless as to what to do. Finally, Matt, the producer, slipped Rachel a note telling her she's going to finally get some answers. This whole time, I thought he was going to give Rachel the final rose, but this dramatic scene made me start to think otherwise. Rachel shows up in the most gorgeous green dress. She is super nervous and probably preparing herself for the worst at this point. She pours her heart out to Matt, and just when I thought that Matt was going to go home by himself,
But that doesn't mean I want to lose you. When I think about the life I want to live, I think about living that life with you. And I want to leave here with you. And I want to commit to you.
Rachel gets the final rose, but unfortunately, that doesn't last very long. We get right into After the Final Rose, which is hosted by a new face, Emmanuel Acho. If you're unfamiliar with who this man is, I highly recommend watching his series on YouTube called Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man, where he has important conversations educating people on what it's like to be Black in America. So you're probably wondering, where's Chris Harrison? So to preface, a lot happened behind the scenes between the end of filming and the show airing. There are some photos of Rachel in 2018 at an antebellum themed sorority party that surfaced on the internet, and it just took Bachelor Nation by storm. This opened up a conversation about the lack of understanding for diversity and equality within the franchise, especially among contestants of color. Chris Harrison also faced a ton of backlash for an interview he had with former Bachelorette Rachel Lindsay, where it seemed to many Chris was defending Rachel Kirkconnell's actions. This forced Chris Harrison to step aside temporarily and allow Emmanuel to lead this tough conversation. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad he did. The show starts off chatting with Michelle about her heartbreak from Matt. She's still incredibly emotional, but we find out it's because she had asked to speak with Matt before they left Nemacolin for closure, and he said no. You can easily see that Matt's decision to not see her was weighing on her heart, and she was finally able to gain some closure and asked Matt why she wasn't able to have the conversation she needed months earlier when he walked away.
And I asked you for a conversation, and it was not a conversation where I was trying to change your trajectory or trying to change your mind or fight for you. It was a conversation so that I could have my inner peace.
The conversations in this episode get deeper and deeper as we go along. Matt talks to Emmanuel about being the first Black Bachelor and what kind of pressure that put on him.
As a Black person, there's an extra level of scrutiny when you're the first of something, and you want to make sure that you're on your best behavior in terms of how you're speaking, how you present yourself, because for a lot of people, that was the first time having someone like myself in their home.
To me, Matt seemed to not focus too much on his race throughout the show, or we just didn't see it. He seemed more focused on the qualities each woman had, as opposed to how his race could affect each relationship. Although I am curious to know how him and Rachel started talking about color during their fantasy suite date. If you didn't catch it, the season promo, Rachel speaks to Matt and says,
I do acknowledge color in every sense. At the end of the day, like, love is love. It doesn't matter what it looks like.
I just wonder how they got to that conversation, but I don't think I'll ever know. Emmanuel shifts the conversation and asks Matt what his relationship with Rachel was like after they left Unicom. Their relationship went from sweet to sour once the photos of Rachel started to circulate. At first, Matt dismissed these as rumors, but quickly learned that this was something he needed to look more into. Matt confirms him and Rachel are no longer together, and he shared more about what that conversation was like.
It was as tough as you can imagine, and it's heartbreaking. If you don't understand that something like that is problematic in 2018, there's a lot of me that you won't understand, and it's as simple as that.
Ultimately, after the talks the two of them had, Matt came to the conclusion that Rachel may not know what it's really like to be Black in America. I've seen on Twitter, and even on my own page, that people don't seem to know what Matt meant by this. Rachel obviously will never know the true perspective because she can't walk in his shoes. But her lack of initial understanding was a huge concern to him because being Black is a part of him. And if she didn't have the basic understanding 3 years ago, then that means she has a lot of learning to do. A lot of education that needs to be done before stepping into a relationship where she can fully understand all parts of Matt. This must have been an extremely difficult conversation, but I can understand his decision to leave the relationship and allow her to do the work that she's been promising to do. Rachel joins Emmanuel on stage and he lays everything out. From showing the photos to sharing the history of what antebellum really is, Rachel is finally given a chance to explain her actions.
See someone who was living in this ignorance without even like thinking about who it would be hurting. I never once asked myself at any point, like, what's the tradition behind this? What does this represent? You know, why do we wear those dresses? I'm not gonna sit here and say that I didn't know any better because I could have easily asked myself those questions.
I do want to add that she looked like she lost a lot of weight, and this situation affected her in more ways than one. I thought she spoke well in explaining herself, and I appreciated the part when she says,
I did get a lot of people saying, like, this is normal where I grew up. I don't think that that's what that stood for. I didn't know that, so it can't be racist because I'm not a racist. And I think that people need to realize that just saying, like, this is normal where I came from or this is common where I came from, that doesn't make it right and that doesn't make it okay.
I felt like she was being sincere, but of course, it's not my apology to accept. Rachel sees Matt for the first time and apologizes for hurting Matt.
Once I really tried to put myself into your shoes as much as I could, I really do think that our relationship was very strong and the love that we shared was very real. So for you to end things, I realized that must have been really hard for you as well, to where you must have been hurting. And I just wanted to say I'm really sorry for not understanding that initially. And that I'm really sorry that it hurt you.
You can just see the devastation on Matt's face. He was speechless for several minutes, but was able to explain to Rachel why he was so hurt.
The most disappointing thing for me was having to explain to you why what I saw was problematic and why I was so upset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was problematic, because when I'm in a relationship, it means that I'm committed to that person. And commitment for me, when I'm dating someone, is on track to get married. And so when I questioned our relationship, it was on the context of you not fully understanding my Blackness. and what it means to be a black man in America.
Listening to both their heartache and their voices was extremely hard to watch. They were both clearly still hurting and very much in love. I wish them nothing but the best. But to end the show on a positive note, we finally find out who the Bachelorette is. So drum roll, please!
We're the Bachelorette.
It's Katie and Michelle! Katie's season will air in the summer and Michelle's in the fall. I can't tell you how excited I am. I think we've seen by now that men can make a good decision to save their life. So finally we get some smart, mature, knows what they want ladies find love. Hopefully we'll get some happily ever afters. And with that being said, the Bach recaps will continue in the summer when Katie's season comes out. So please don't forget to like, comment, follow at the Bach recap for all things Bach.